You're listening to a new episode of AVIAPRENEURS podcast. This is Adnan Branbo, and my guest today did not accept me to call her Aviapreneur, despite the fact that she is definitely one of them, and a very important one, as her role is very essential in helping aviapreneurs turning their dream into a reality. Thank you for joining me, Miss Carol Anderson. Good morning.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Adnan.
It's a pleasure for all of us here in AVIAPRENEURS podcast, myself, the team, and all the viewers. So, Carol, you are a global aviation professional support lawyer. You worked for more than 10 years in the Middle East as a legal counsel for Gulf Air and as a legal advisor for Emirates Airline. You also worked for some of the top global law firms specializing in serving the aviation industry, Gates and Partners, DLA Piper, and recently and currently in Clyde and Co. You worked also as a paralegal for IATA, the International Air Transport Association, and you set up your own law firm in UAE and UK for a couple of years. You're serving as a board member for the International Aviation Women's Association for more than 10 years now. Wow, what a great, rich, and long career. Amazing. I'm very impressed.
It looks that way now. It wasn't always so easy, I don't think. I think when you're working your way up through the ranks, it can be quite bewildering, which is one of the reasons why I got so involved with International Aviation Women's Association, because one of the things we do is to create a pathway and help young women to find their way through their professional journey, basically.
Of course, that's a very important role. Let me start by your career. The aviation industry actually really owes you a lot. You're more than 23 years serving airlines and serving aviation businesses, providing them the essential legal support, which is very important for them to do their business safely and legally. You have chosen a very nice field in the law, in that noble career. At the same time, you worked in the aviation industry, which is that fascinating industry that nobody who worked in it ever have left it, as long as I know. So did you always want to be an aviator? Did you always want to be in the aviation industry?
No, I can't honestly say that I did, but I knew I wanted to work in an international environment because I studied law and languages. And after studying abroad during my time at university, I really enjoyed it. And I was wondering how I could combine my legal studies with working abroad or working with people from other countries in an industry that was international. So that was my starting point. And then I found myself in Geneva working at the United Nations, and an opportunity came up to work as a paralegal at the International Air Transport Association. And that really opened my eyes to aviation as an industry sector. Most people go to IATA at the end of their career, towards retirement, after having spent 20, 30 years in an airline. But I was there right at the beginning, so it was a big learning curve for me, and I could see it from a different perspective, how everything works together to ensure that the industry continues. So that was the turning point for me into aviation.
And how was your experience for working for IATA? How is the atmosphere there in Geneva? I had the opportunity to go to IATA in Geneva as a trainee, but how was your experience as an employee there?
I really loved it. I loved working in such an international city and working with colleagues from all over the world. I got to travel. I went to, every year there's a big annual legal conference for all the airline lawyers and the lawyers who work in law firms supporting the airline business. And I think I did 3 of those. We went to San Diego and Phoenix and also Dubai. Yeah, that was my first trip to Dubai also.
I wanted to ask you about how was your experience living in Dubai?
Well, my husband actually was brought up in Dubai. He came to the UAE when he was 6 months old. And when he started working in a role with a Middle Eastern market, he started to spend more and more time in Dubai. I was working in a law firm in London at the time, and we talked about it. And I said, well, I'd love to come to Dubai, but I need to work for Emirates. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I was offered a position at Emirates as a legal advisor. So that was, as far as I could see at that point in time, that was like all my career dreams had come true. working for Emirates, one of the biggest airlines. Well, then it was aspirational. It was aspiring to be the biggest airline in the world, and indeed it's gone from strength to strength. So it was great to be there in that 5-year period when they were growing so much.
And I'm sure, yes, Emirates, I think it reached a stage where it became almost the biggest passenger scheduled airlines, at least in terms of available seat kilometers.
Yeah, internationally, definitely.
Yes, correct. So, as you may know, I'm a lawyer myself. Before setting up my business, I'm a lawyer myself. So
I need to be careful about what I say, Adnan.
So I always like to combine law and business, and I was always interested in seeing how the law can help the business, and whether it's an advantage or because in many countries lawyers are called in the culture of the companies. Actually, it's not officially called. I have many friends who call lawyers as business prevention department. That because lawyers they are very cautious. They are very cautious in protecting the client. Where sometimes, if they don't have real good understanding of the business, they cannot always help the clients achieve the business objective. So now I have a very important question. It took me a lot of time to be able to craft this question, because in my point of view, the law can be used as a strategic tool. It can help the business start correctly, grow safely by controlling and managing risk properly, or it can be used as a firefighting tool where the business or the aviapreneur can only run to the lawyer when there's a problem, after the problem actually have started. So from your experience, have you seen the airlines and the aviation businesses and the aviapreneurs you worked with dealing with the law as a strategic tool which can give them a legal strategic competitive advantage, or as I said, firefighting tool? What's your perspective and experience here?
I think I've seen everything, to be honest. I've seen a bit of all of that, but obviously the best combination is when the lawyer learns the business and is embedded in various different teams to be able to guide the commercial teams and the technical teams towards a solution, be it a transaction or a regulatory compliance issue, towards a path that means that they can continue with their commercial objectives or operational objectives without the lawyer getting in the way too much. But obviously there will always be situations where things go wrong, disputes happen, contracts don't go the way they should go, there could be delays, there could be lots of different things go wrong. And of course then you've done your best by drafting a contract that will work, but you also need to draft it in a way that provides a mechanism for discussion and sorting things out when things go wrong. A lot of the time in aviation or airlines especially, contracts are for 10 plus years. So you're really in a partnership with your supply chain and you really need to get along. It's only when things go so severely wrong that you need to try and pull that contract apart and start again. But I would say I've seen a bit of everything. But my advice to any aspiring airline lawyers or any lawyer going into industry as an in-house lawyer is to learn the business. Get as close as you can to your internal clients and know what they're about, know what they're doing. I spent a lot of time getting to know people. At Emirates, I used to spend a day down in engineering every week and go see my commercial colleagues on Sheikh Zayed Road every couple of weeks and go to flight training, find out what's going on, understand what their objectives are, and then you can assist them. I liken my job to being that as a taxi driver. You know, your clients know where they want to go. If they don't know where they want to go, then you have a bigger problem, because it's going to take more time and money to get there, because you're going to have to really pull the instructions out. But if they do know where they're going, then you're basically driving the car and you'll get them there. So it's a simple analogy, but it is true. And I think the more you know about your client's business, whether you're in-house or in a law firm, then it's a win-win, because you'll be talking the same language. Often lawyers are talking a different language.
Very
And
interesting.
I think that's the way forward, to be honest. Get more commercial in your approach to legal issues, problems, and transactions, and really understand the client's objectives. Because there could be things that you're not aware of just reading the contract.
Mm-hmm.
There could be other things. There could be relationship issues from the past. There could be all sorts of things going on behind the scenes that you don't really understand. And it's only by asking the questions that you'll find out.
Definitely. So, Carol, you just mentioned that you advised lawyers to go and learn business, learn the commercial. What about aviation professionals getting acquainted with the law and the legal issues? I know that you're also a registered instructor with IATA Training and Development Institute, and you teach their courses for the legal aspects of the aviation industry for lawyers, and at the same time for non-legal professionals. So how important for you is for aviation professionals to actually understand the law and get little specialization or little knowledge in the legal aspects of the aviation industry? How important is that for them to start and grow their business in a right legal way?
I think it's all about building awareness. Another hat that you've got when you're working in an airline or a industry sector as a lawyer, rather than an external lawyer, is education. You need to educate your clients about the regulatory landscape, what rules apply to them, but in a way that they understand. Again, it's all about talking the same language. They don't want to particularly be qualified as lawyers, but they also need an awareness of where the limits are, how far can they go with one particular endeavor or transaction. They want to stay the right side of the law, but obviously, as you know, aviation's international. There's so many different rules and regulations that apply to an airline operation. So for me, it's about building awareness and making sure that your clients understand what they need to understand in order to conduct their business. And oftentimes we're interpreters and educators. We interpret the law in a way that makes it easy to understand for our clients. And a lot of our internal stakeholders, 20, 30 years in the business, they'll understand pretty much everything that applies to them, because obviously in your technical field, you've got all the standards and the recommendations from ICAO that flow down through the system. And then there'll be international operating rules. You know, when you're flying into the European Union, there's standards and regulations that apply to you. And the same in any region, really. The US has its own system, Australia, etc. So it's all about awareness, I would say. I don't think they need to fully study the law unless they have to. I mean, obviously, if you're going into compliance or government affairs in an airline, then you really need to understand the Chicago Convention and any other international conventions that apply to the airline. On a working level, so that you can do your job. But I think most people just need to want to understand how it applies to them. So I think when I did a bit of training, I didn't actually do that much in the end. I did a long course, a significant course in Africa, and I had a mixed group of students, which was quite interesting. Some were lawyers and some were not lawyers, as part of a women's leadership program in Johannesburg. And it was interesting to see the questions that came out of that week. I found that most of the women in that group understood the law as it applied to them, but they didn't understand the context. You know, where does it come from? Does it apply also in these other countries? Do I need to think about anything else in terms of, you know, we've got public international law, private international law. As you know, how an airline interacts with its passengers. There's lots. It's kind of easy to get overwhelmed, I think, if you're not a lawyer and you don't specialize in those areas. But it's also good to just focus on the parts that you actually need, and make your clients aware of it so that they don't run into issues later. It's all about awareness, I would say, educating your clients and awareness.
I completely agree with you. Definitely, they should not be studying law in detail where they become specialists, but getting aware and having enough awareness is very important, because we have seen many cases of bright ideas, innovative, creative business models succeed or fail just based on having the right legal structure or the right legal strategy. Can you share some kind of experience you have in this area?
I can't think of anything offhand, but obviously point number one is wherever you're going to set up your business, you need to do your homework and make sure that the regulatory environment in that country, in that jurisdiction, is supportive, and meets your requirements from a business perspective. For instance, in the UAE, there's lots of free zones that actively support entrepreneurs to come and do their business more cheaply and easier, like a setup of a business more cheaply and easier than they would be able to do it onshore. In the UK, we have different types of companies, as they do in most jurisdictions, depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. You can have a limited company, you can have you can be on your own as a self-employed person running your business, and then you have to make a decision on how big that business is going to be, as to how much bureaucracy, if you like, you want to wade through. If you want to be a limited business, then you'll probably want to apply for a VAT number. You have to get into all the tax registrations and legislations. So you probably need some input at the very start from a corporate lawyer who would be able to help you with the setup and structure, depending on the size and intended turnover of your business. And then after that, you'll need somebody to help you with all the relationship management that you're going to need, your supply chain, any employees that you're going to employ. It starts to get complicated very, very quickly, but there are specialist lawyers that can help startups get their businesses off the ground, pardon the pun. And then after that, it's really just relationship management and making sure your books are in order on a annual basis, depending on which country you're in. I think if you go in it with an awareness that, yes, I want to be a businessman, I don't particularly want to get involved in all of this legal red tape, but it is necessary, and it's necessary in order to protect you and also any consumers you may be dealing with. Obviously, if you're a B2C, then it's more rigorous in terms of regulatory requirements. But on the whole, I think if you do your homework in advance and really think about what it is you want to achieve, and then run your business plans through they're usually smaller law firms who assist startups, and they'll provide like a one-stop shop, so you can get everything going at the same time. The business registrations, the tax registrations, and any other basic contracts that you need to get going.
Very useful advice. Can you allow me just one more legal question before we move to another topic?
Please.
Yeah, we all know that the airline industry is very vulnerable. It gets hugely affected by the international environment. While some changes have a light effect on the airline industry, but some of them are having a huge impact, like what we have in the last 2 years and the current crisis we are passing. So as a result of this crisis, we see many aviation businesses and airlines getting bankrupt in the recent period. Do you think the law provide any kind of protection, any kind of arrangement where these businesses can survive that destiny as a result of the environment surrounding the airline business?
Well, I think it's almost impossible to future-proof or wrap your business in cotton wool to the extent that it'll never be exposed to external obstacles, I'll call them. I mean, COVID was a massive hurdle, barrier, stopping point really for a lot of aviation businesses. But I have had some comfort in the fact that the industry has actually come together to some degree. A lot of airlines had to renegotiate. If you think about it, revenues went down to almost zero in March, April, May of 2020. And then how do you pay your bills? Question mark. How do you pay your staff? Question mark. How do you keep the aircraft in working order, you know, ready to fly after they've been, and then a decision on how many aircraft to ground, how many, you know, what maintenance can we do? What are our obligations to our maintenance contract providers? All of these things came to the fore in the first few months of working in an airline, to my knowledge. And the best way around it was to talk to your suppliers. We renegotiated contracts. For some countries, government assistance was on hand to pay wages for airline staff. Obviously, we've seen it all over the world. A lot of staff were made redundant in order to save the airline, if you were. I can only really talk about airlines, but I have seen some restructuring. So there are jurisdictions where an airline or any company can voluntarily go into financial, it's not administration as such, but just a restructure program. Let's restructure the business plan and see if we can cover off our debts in a different way in order to keep the business going, rather than having to go through, you know, wind up procedures and bankruptcy legislation. So it's been a difficult period. I think a lot of airlines have shown immense resilience. For instance, Donata, can you imagine Donata in Australia? Suddenly they're not supplying aircraft with meals every day for the in-flight catering. So what did they do? They started an online delivery meal service because everyone was in lockdown. So they pivoted their business model, continued doing what they do, but just a different consumer group, a different set of customers. So there's been so much innovation, and I think that's testament to the resilience of the industries. People sit back, absorb the situation, and then think, how can we move forward? How can we get from here to next year without losing our staff, without losing our customers? How can we keep going? And I think if you look carefully across the sector, you'll find lots of stories like Donata's story, where people have just decided, okay, let's do this for a short period and see what happens. I know nowadays all the airlines are taking back those staff that they furloughed or had to make redundant. So the numbers are slowly increasing again. And I don't want to predict anything that's not going to happen, but I think it's going to be a slow journey, but maybe in the next 12 to 24 months, we should be seeing recovery back to where it was in 2019.
We hope so soon. We hope so soon. So let's move ahead to the role of women in the aviation industry. You are very well known to be very active in that area. You have been a board member of the International Aviation Women's Association for more than 12 years. So I'm sure you have seen a lot during this period. Are you satisfied with the role you and the association are playing in enabling the women working in the aviation industry to fulfill their full potential like they do in many other industries?
Well, I mean, you've only got to look at the number of female CEOs of airlines to say that our work is not finished. It's a very low percentage. It's like less than 5%, I think. Same as pilots across the globe. I think it's 4 point something or 5% of the world's pilots are women. I'm not just saying that it's all about CEOs and pilots. They're good indicators of how far we have to go still. But then if you look in other areas, we're at equality, so or more than equality. So I can see things changing at the bottom end, at the junior end. I can see more women coming through into aviation careers. We're definitely, the Me Too movement a few years ago gave IAWA a massive boost. Suddenly, people are drafting diversity, equality and inclusion policies in businesses, including airlines and aviation companies. And as an external lawyer, you're often asked to give your diversity statistics as part of a pitch document to various aviation manufacturers or companies. So it's becoming more the norm, but I think we've still got a long way to go. What IAWA does is we have a mantra: connect, inspire and lead. So by organizing conferences and little networking events, we get to know each other. By getting to know each other, we hope to put people in touch with other contacts throughout the industry to help them. We don't just focus on lawyers. It was born out of a group of Washington lawyers 33 or 34 years ago, who wanted to get to know each other and see how they could help each other. But nowadays we have women from all walks of life in the aviation sector amongst our membership. We've created a junior membership category, and you can get involved as a student by applying for our scholarship programs. We've also recently started a mentoring system where you can pair up with a woman who's much further on in her career, from, again, either a technical background or an operational background, commercial, legal, financial. And also we're just starting an internship program where we're asking our stakeholders and our supporting companies to notify us when they have internship opportunities for junior females. We have annual conferences, which are great opportunities for networking, but obviously they've been put on hold. But again, we pivoted. We went to a hybrid model last year, and before that we had a completely online conference experience, which was great. So we've kept the contact. It's never the same, I think you'll agree, than being together in person, but it was better than not being able to do anything at all. Definitely. And one of the other things I'm involved in this year is working with the Department for Transport in the United Kingdom, with the Reach for the Sky programs and Build Back Better programs to increase diversity from all walks, from all ethnic backgrounds, all genders going into aviation career paths. So I'm kind of the odd one out. I'm the only lawyer, because most people tend to be from a technical or engineering background, but it's nice to be in the mix and get to see what everybody else is doing to bring forward the new generation of aviators. A lot of effort, where everybody in the industry must be very grateful for what you are doing in that area. Thank you very much. No problem. It's my pleasure. We appreciate your time, Carol. Thank you for all the insights. Thank you for all the experience and knowledge and information you have shared with the audience of AVIAPRENEURS podcast. Well, thank you, Adnan. It's been my pleasure. I hope to see you again soon. Definitely we will. Thank you, fellow Aviapreneurs. We hope you have find a lot of benefit and experience like I did in this episode. We thank Carol, and we look forward to seeing you all next week with a new guest and a new episode of Aviapreneurs podcast. Have a great day.